the topic no later than 3 business days in advance of the meeting. These individuals may share their comments during the board business portion of the agenda. In both cases, comments will include the name and address of the individual and be limited to 3 minutes. In addition, in public session, the board will not hear complaints about school personnel nor against any person connected with the school system. An unabridged board agenda for this meeting can be found on your electronic device at the address shown on the screen. And for your convenience, hard copies of the board agenda may be found on the library table at the back of the room. The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education is on March 17th, 2021 at 5:30 p.m. at Cuyahoga Falls High School Library, 2300 4th Street. And now for our Pledge of Allegiance, followed by positive reflections. Mrs. Patrice White.
If you please stand if you are able and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Positive reflection, since it is Right to Read Week. The wonderful thing about books is that they allow us to enter imaginatively into someone else's life. And when we do that, we learn to sympathize with other people. But the real surprise is that we also learn truths about ourselves, about our own lives, that somehow we hadn't been able to see before. Catherine Patterson. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Item D, presentations, staff recognition, Staff Star Award.
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the Board of Education. I'd like to invite up our Director of Human Resources, Mrs. Ellen McClure. Ellen?
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our board meeting this evening. So the Staff Star Award is a peer-recognized award for our staff. We take nominations all year long from our staff members who are nominating other members of our staff for this award, and we recognize them when we recognize our top Tigers. So I'd like to invite Tina Magis and her principal, Julie Hall, to come on up with me. So Tina was nominated by her principal. So, and Tina is a kindergarten teacher this year. Nice black tiger outfit. Okay. At Richardson Elementary. So I'm going to read this and then we'll make a presentation. Tina Magis is a shining star through and through. She is known as a leader at Richardson and within the Cuyahoga Falls City School District. Tina goes above and beyond to ensure that she is providing students with a personalized education. This year, Tina transitioned from many years as a 3rd grade teacher to a kindergarten classroom. Even in the middle of a pandemic, she did so seamlessly. Students in Mrs. Magis's classroom are provided with a perfect balance of nurturing and rigor. Tina also takes her leadership role very seriously. She understands the power of collaboration and the impact it can have on student growth and achievement. It's evident that Tina loves what she does and always works hard to ensure that she is supporting our Black Tiger community. Congratulations. So I'd like to present Tina with the Shining Star Award. Hold it up so you can see. It's in a nice plastic bag, so nobody's touched it. So, and it says 2020-2021 Cuyahoga Falls City Schools Star Award recipient in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the achievement of Cuyahoga Falls City School District students and the support of Cuyahoga Falls City School District staff members. Thank you very much. Did you want to say anything?
Sure. I've worked in Cuyahoga Falls for over 15 years now. I've worked at both Lincoln and Richardson Elementary, mostly at Richardson. As I said, I've taught 3rd grade for a long time, and transitioning to kindergarten this year of all years is an experience I will never forget. If anybody has experienced Zoom with a kindergartner, you know that the experience will be ingrained in me for forever. But there are great moments in there as well. So I just thank you, and I look forward to many more years.
Next, we have our Top Tiger Awards. Top Tiger Award is a board issued award, and it is supported by the Cuyahoga Falls City Schools Foundation and Alumni Association. Here representing the Foundation Alumni Association is Mrs. Kathy Moffitt. Kathy?
Good evening, everyone, especially our top tigers and their families. It is always probably the best part of our meetings every month when we have them. Now that you folks are split into elementary tonight, middle school and high school, we have them twice a month, so it's a highlight of our evening. The Cuyahoga Falls Schools Foundation Alumni Association was started many years ago by former Superintendent Dr. Harold Wilson. And from the establishment of one scholarship, we have grown and grown, and we continue to grow. But that does not mean that we are not in need of some additional members. So if you are a Falls alumni, please check out our website. We would love to have you join us. And even if you are not, we would love to have you join us as a friend. So you will find varied membership costs, I guess, if you want to say it. And part of this is a donation, though, that goes to our scholarships and our teacher grants. So this past year, we had 75 scholarships worth $180,000. So donations are always appreciated. We sponsor many activities throughout the year. The Memorial Day Parade, who knows this year, but generally our top tigers are always a part of that. So thank you so much. And we would like to thank Young's Screen Printing, thank you. I knew there was another part to it. Deets Flores and Donato's Pizza, because you will find something from each one of them in your bag or the flyer. So thank you, and be sure to check out our site and join us. We would love to have you.
Thank you, Mrs. Moffitt.
Thank you.
Top Tigers, if I could have your attention, please. I'm going to share some protocols this evening. So there's 12 of you, and I will announce your name, and I will begin to read a nomination form from your individual school. When I read your name, I would like you to come stand at the podium with me. And Ms. McClure will give you your tiger bag full of the goodies that Mrs. Moffitt identified, along with a flower. Are you ready? Okay. Our first top tiger is a first grader from Dewitt Elementary, Grant Gongaware. Hi, Grant. Excellent. Grant is nominated by Miss Karen Newsom, and this is what she has to say. Grant is an outstanding citizen in our school and classroom. He comes to school every day prepared and ready to learn. He's an enthusiastic learner and tackles new challenges eagerly with a positive attitude. Grant always brings new ideas to class, discussions, and unique solutions to solve problems. He shows perseverance in all he does and is not afraid to ask for help when it is needed. Grant has a kind, caring, and friendly character, which makes him very well liked in our classroom. If there is something that needs done, he will be the first one to volunteer to help out. He is friendly and kind to all he comes into contact with. He makes friends easily and always includes all children in an activity. Outside of school, he plays soccer, basketball, loves fishing, and wants to try football this fall. He enjoys horses, collects horse figurines, and loves being at the barn with the horses. He likes to help his mother make food and deliver to people who are widows or widowers that they know. He is always helping his older neighbor with yard work and other tasks around the house. His heart is full of love and friendship to so many people in his life. Grant is well deserving of the Top Tiger Award. He makes right choices every day, whether he is in class or at home online. I'm so proud of Grant, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for him. Congratulations for standing out and reaching for the stars. Grant, congratulations. Our next top tiger is also a first grade student at Dewitt Elementary, Caitlin Fogel. Hi, Caitlin. Caitlin is nominated by Ms. Amanda Clegg, and this is what she has to say. Caitlin is a model student. She comes to school every day prepared and ready to learn. She is an enthusiastic learner and tackles new challenges eagerly with a positive attitude. Caitlin is always an active participant in small and whole group discussions, adding in many insightful ideas to thoughts to share with the whole class. She shows perseverance in all she does and is not afraid to ask for help when it is needed. She is doing very well in first grade and never gives up. Caitlin has a very kind, caring, and friendly character, and she is willing to help out in any way possible. She is sure to include all others, making them feel part of the group. She's a great friend. She is a great friend on a daily basis. She consistently makes good choices in all parts of the school day. She is polite to adults and peers in and out of the classroom. Caitlin is a role model for our class with her amazing behavior. Outside of school, Caitlin likes to stay active and participate in different activities. Caitlin has taken dance for 4 years, as well as soccer for the past 2 years. She is currently doing hip hop dance, which she loves. Caitlin is looking forward to continuing dance in the years to come. I am so extremely proud of Caitlin and everything she has accomplished. Keep up the great work. Great job, Caitlin. Our next top tiger is a second grade student at Lincoln Elementary, Oliver Barrows. Hi, Oliver. Oliver is nominated by Mrs. Lee. Oliver is a shining star in our Black Tiger remote learning classroom. He shows Black Tiger pride every day. He's always on time and ready to learn, and hands in quality assignments. He respects others, is a good listener, participates in class discussions, and brightens our class with his smiling face on our Zoom classes each day. He has earned all A's so far this year in second grade, and his favorite subjects are reading and music. His positive attitude toward learning is awesome, and we are so thankful he is in our classroom family. In his free time, Oliver enjoys learning about animals, and he especially loves cats. His hobbies are playing board games, solving puzzles, and playing video games. He is a caring and kind brother, son, and friend, and he's always willing to help others. Hooray for Oliver. Congratulations. Our next top tiger is also a second grade student at Lincoln Elementary, Aubriana Chin. Aubriana, this is what we have to say about Aubriana. She's nominated by Miss Tamara Urisic. Aubriana is kind, considerate, and respectful. She is also hardworking, focused, eager, and creative. She is everything that a teacher would like to see in her students. But that isn't what makes her amazing. What makes her so deserving of a Top Tiger Award is that she is all of these things and continues to demonstrate all of these qualities, even though life has placed some pretty large obstacles in her way. But she's handled these obstacles like any true superhero by vaulting over them and never looking back. That's why Aubriana Chin is a top tiger. Our next top tiger is a kindergarten student at at Preston Elementary, Annabelle Porter. Annabella was nominated by Ms. Gimmel. And this is what she had to say. Annabella is an amazing student. She comes to school each day filled with joy and ready to learn. Annabella tries her very hardest both in class and online. She's always willing to participate and lend a helping hand. Annabella exemplifies all that is a top tiger. She is kind, smart, hardworking, and a fabulous leader. I am proud and blessed to have Annabella in my class. She makes every day enjoyable and brings the sunshine we all need during this most difficult year. Congratulations. Our next top tiger is a kindergarten student at Preston Elementary, Christopher Boswell. Hi, Christopher. Christopher was nominated by Mr. Kaiser, and this is what he had to say. Christopher has a great attitude. He works hard at home and at school. He is kind to his classmates and loves to help his teacher. He is always on task and often goes above and beyond expectations. Congratulations, Christopher. Our next top tiger is a first grade student at Price Elementary School, Hunter Hillman. Hello, Hunter. Hunter was nominated by Mrs. Varga. Hunter Hillman is a responsible and considerate classmate. He turns in his work on time and comes to school or our Zoom meetings prepared to learn. He always has a smile and a pleasant greeting. He is kind and respectful to his classmates. Hunter is a great example of perseverance. He has a good attitude towards work and never gives up. His MAP scores have steadily improved as a result. Hunter is a wonderful addition to our class, and I'm happy to nominate him for Top Tiger. Congratulations, Hunter. Our next top tiger is also a first grade student at Price Elementary, Muar Rashid. Hello, congratulations. Muar is nominated by Mrs. Fiquet. I am nominating Mahar because she is the type of student you dream of having in your classroom. She is well-mannered, respectful, and has a heart of gold. She comes to school each day and every day with a smile on her face and a bubbly personality. Hardworking and responsible, Mahar enthusiastically participates in class discussions, asks wonderful questions about what we are learning, and even goes above and beyond by completing additional work outside of school hours. She loves to learn, and I love teaching her. Mahar is a wonderful friend. She's kind, patient, and accepting. She doesn't think twice before offering a kind word to her classmates or cheering on the success of others. She loves creating things and gifts others with her handmade creations. Way to go, Mahar. Congratulations. Our next top tiger is a second grade student from Richardson Elementary, Owen Ipe. Hi, Owen. Owen is nominated by Miss Krish. You can turn the face screw. Owen exemplifies Black Tiger pride each and every day. He seeks challenges in his learning, participates often, and is always observing what is happening around him. Owen not only strives for A's on all of his assignments, but he also remembers to reflect on mistakes, takes on new challenges, and uses those life lessons to help him persevere and find success. In the age of a pandemic where Zoom occurs during the majority of the day, Owen stays engaged in his learning and follows directions. Not only does Owen find success in the classroom, he also finds success on the field playing soccer and football. He is a great teammate to others, just like he is in the classroom. He can't wait to play football in high school. It is with pleasure that I nominate Owen Ike as Richardson's top Tiger. Our next top Tiger is a second grade student from Richardson Elementary, Cameron Crocker.
Her headband is cat ear.
Cameron was nominated by the second grade team. Cameron exemplifies Black Tiger pride daily. She is respectful to others, following both Zoom and in-class rules. Cameron's attitude stands out as she is always cheering on her classmates to make sure they have the correct answers on their whiteboards or in their Zoom chat. She is a motivator to her peers and a challenge seeker. Cameron often puts others at ease with her friendly smile, her cheerful nature, her infectious laughter. Others around her have noticed that math is her particular forte. Cameron will notice a mistake, analyze it, and will pick it apart until it's right. She has done well on all of her math tests so far. It is with great pride to announce that Cameron is our top Tiger of the month. Congratulations. Our next top Tiger is a second grade student from Richardson Elementary, Jack Johnson. It's okay, Jack. It's okay. Okay. There we go. No, you're good. Good job, Jack. Good to see you, buddy. Jack is nominated by Miss Deanne Clemens. Through his persistent effort, Jack Johnson is making remarkable progress in learning to read, to write, to work with numbers, and to work with others. Jack is overcoming significant challenges in communication to acquire new skills and express himself without agitation. Each morning, Jack is the first student in our virtual classroom, focused, eager to learn, ready to participate, and often sharing a great smile. He is excited about learning and never gives up. Jack is a joy to work with and an inspiration to all of us. Congratulations, Jack. Good job, buddy. Good job. Good job. Go on. Yeah, good job. Our next top Tiger is a second grade student at Silver Lake Elementary, Takari, Liberte. Takari is nominated by Mrs. Sandy Hutchinson, and this is what she has to say. I'd like to present my top Tiger, Takari Liberte. Takari is an amazing young man. He is hardworking and always has a smile on his face. He continues to improve in any way possible. He has embraced the technology challenge and has used them to his advantage. Takari is very bright and polite with a wonderful sense of humor. He has taken on the situation of this year with class and dignity and has taken responsibility above and beyond his years. Yet through all of this, he remains humble and friendly to all. I'm so honored to present Takari Liberte as our top tiger. Our last top tiger this evening is a second grade student at Silver Lake Elementary, Elise Peters. Good job, Elise. Elise was nominated by Miss Kate Beck. This young lady has shown maturity and grace during this unique school year. Elise is often the first to log on to our Zoom meetings, and in spite of many internet struggles, she is the last to leave with a smile on her face. She completes all of her work in and out of class. Elise is extremely supportive of her peers and her teachers. She continues to show academic growth and strives to do even more to improve herself. She is a perfect example of what a top tiger should be. I'm honored to share our top tiger for this school year, Elise Peters. Congratulations. Concludes our top tigers for this evening. You're free to stay or you're free to go.
Hey there, girl.
5 minutes.
So for the agenda,
See
the
you.
amounts and rates.
Yeah, I
Look
see.
at her. I hope.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. They're so dark.
We're ready for item 3 under presentations, focus book study. Reading group 1 read chapter 5, social studies with reading and writing at the core. So our task was to engage in professional development through participation in a collaborative book study. And our purpose is to inform our practice so as positively impact student achievement as we continue to work toward realizing our vision and mission. I'd like to thank our reading team, Mr. Bugatti and myself. Appreciate the work that was completed by Chris Geyer from Roberts Middle School, Julie Hall from Richardson Elementary, Julie Leeson, gifted specialist, Jason Smith at the high school, and Amanda Wythe at Elizabeth Price Elementary. We're going to begin with question 1. Identify what you believe to be 2 key ideas from this month's reading assignment. So take it away, Mr. Bugatti.
The first key idea the team talked about was key focus point here was students are more engaged when they are part of a dialogue that is argumentative and participate in a debate-style discussion. Students should have a chance in an unbiased classroom environment to study all sides of an issue. This is how we create informed citizens and is the very essence of democracy. This one was extremely important to the team members because of the unbiased piece. We believe that we should feel, or students should hear both sides of every story, no matter who the teacher is or no matter what they're talking about. That was extremely important. And it's a fact that when students can engage in an argumentative, participate in debate style classroom amongst one another, that they do far better in learning.
Thank you. The second key idea identified by our group was, quote, intellectual engagement, not rote learning, is the key to a much needed reset in social studies, unquote. Many social studies classrooms still focus on depth of knowledge, level 1, which is recall and reproduction. We must get to depth of knowledge levels 3 and 4, strategic thinking and extended thinking. And this comes with Mr. Bugatti's point number 1, through debate style discussion, dialogue that's argumentative, and of course, as we'll find out later, reading authentic texts, diaries, primary sources, and a variety of information to inform. Question 2, what did you read that reinforced your thinking and beliefs, Mr. Bugatti?
We have a couple points here. The importance of geography, not just locations on a map, but its effect on the social, cultural, and economic development of nations and continents. Students often are ignorant of the influence of geography, such as how physical features, mountains, rivers, oil and mineral resources, the absence or presence of natural borders, and access to coastlines affect trade and transportation. The how, especially at the elementary level, the time spent on social studies has shrunk considerably due to focus on testing. Participants said that they have seen this happen in Cuyahoga Falls. The University of North Carolina study showed that 88% of elementary teachers regarded the teaching of social studies as a low priority. However, the study of history, geography, government, and culture provide critical background knowledge which impacts reading comprehension. Research clearly shows that strong general background knowledge impacts reading comprehension and is a good predictor of success on state and national assessments.
Thank you. Question 3, what did you read that challenged your thinking and beliefs? We had a few items in this category. The first was character education. Many of today's students have, quote, broken moral compasses, unquote, because schools are largely on the sidelines on issues of character and morality. Schools tend to shy away from studying topics that are controversial. They must be sensitive to community perceptions and parental objections. There is concern about the teacher's personal bias entering into a classroom discussion. But not only is it important to teach students that character, morality, and ethics are important to becoming more informed and productive citizens, but also students crave these more meaningful discussions. More reading should take place in class with instruction and oversight and not simply assigned. And then reflecting on the importance of social studies has challenged my thoughts on how we have been operating as a district by putting it low on our totem pole. Question 4, a new learning, Mr. Bugatti?
Yes, many of our team members identified the strategy of task, text, and talk. First, clearly establish the task, which is a question or prompt. For example, provide arguments in response to this question. Should we give more or less power to any of the 3 branches of government? Text, such as newspaper, magazine article, a primary source, or certain carefully selected textbook pages. Carefully selected is probably operative there. Students then engage in purposeful reading and annotate, underline, and make notes as they read. Students then perform pairs to talk. With their partners, they discuss their notes, impressions, and learnings gained from the reading. This is followed by class discussion and debate. A short writing assignment would follow. The literacy elements of reading, writing, speaking, and listening would all have been incorporated and would have addressed specific social studies standards.
And the last question, how can we use this information to inform our work on behalf of our school community and the students we serve? 3 quick points here. In social studies, We must identify the essential topics and standards divided by unit and grading period to ensure pacing and depth of study. We must teach, model, and practice the task, text, talk, and close reading strategies, and we must use this chapter to drive our district's work in social studies. We're going to follow up here, Mr. Hutch, with a quick video.
Sure. Well, I really came to education as a journalist and a concerned public citizen, I guess you would say, and just seemed to be incredibly important, especially to figure out this thing that is often called the achievement gap, and why is it that kids at different ends of the socioeconomic spectrum have such different test scores and other education outcomes. And I really started looking like a lot of sort of education reformers at high school, because that's where everything seemed to fall apart. It seemed like we were making these gains in elementary school, middle school, but then something happened in high school. And so I started writing. I was writing about what was going on in DC, Washington, DC, where I live, but I also started volunteering at a high poverty high school. And I realized, I thought I would help kids with their writing. I'm a writer. I thought, hey, why not? First thing I learned was this is way beyond my abilities as a volunteer, coming down there a couple times a week. The other thing I was surprised by was it wasn't just that kids weren't being taught how to write and having problems with writing. It was also that I would show them like an article from a magazine or something, and these were 10th graders, and it looked pretty straightforward to me. I asked them to write about what I was getting them to read, and I discovered they couldn't understand what I was getting them to read because they just were missing so many vocabulary terms and just knowledge of the world. And I have to say, I did not figure out why myself, but I did stumble upon an explanation, which was that the roots of these problems that we saw in high school, that are so obvious in high school, really lie largely in the way we teach elementary school, and specifically, a lot of them with the way we teach reading comprehension. And so when I stumbled across that, and I realized that, I thought I knew a lot about education, that this was something nobody had ever mentioned to me, that I'd never read about it, I'd never heard about it, although there were some people who were talking about it, writing about it. It seemed to me somebody needed to write a book about this that maybe could be sort of make this fairly academic, dry subject really engaging and interesting, sort of in a journalistic way. And so that's how I came to write The Knowledge Gap.
Very interesting. And I've heard that story before, but it always amazes me. Sort of heard the journey that got you into that. And so then what did you discover about this idea of how early elementary schools were teaching comprehension and maybe why it wasn't working?
Well, I've been in a lot of elementary school classrooms. I just hadn't really understood what I was looking at. What I discovered on looking into this a little more carefully was I had assumed that elementary schools were trying to teach social studies and science and really build kids' knowledge. I just took that for granted. But what I discovered was that really wasn't the focus, that it was the focus was much more on getting kids to master reading comprehension skills and strategies, like finding the main idea, making inferences, etc. And that the theory was that it didn't really matter so much what they were reading, except that it should be fairly easy for them to read independently. But sort of the topics didn't matter that much. It was more, if you get really good at finding the main idea, then later on down the road, you'll be able to use that skill to acquire knowledge from your reading then. And I have to say, I was kind of surprised because like on a gut level, this didn't make much sense to me. But I also discovered that that cognitive science, as you were alluding to, has found that really the main component, there's a lot of things that go into reading comprehension, but the main component is not some kind of generally applicable skill, like being really good at finding the main idea. It's really much more to do with how much knowledge and vocabulary you have relating to the topic. And so what schools should be doing is really, especially for kids who are not picking up a lot of academic knowledge and vocabulary at home, schools should really be building that knowledge as early as possible in order to ensure that when kids do get to high school, they'll be able to understand high school level text and beyond.
And you did a lot of observations in classrooms too. And so what would you say to
Thank you, Mr. Hutch. That was Natalie Wexler. Some of the board members have read the book, The Knowledge Gap, and we certainly recommend that to provide some additional information that aligns with this focus chapter on social studies and soon to be science coming up too. So again, we thank our Reading Group 1 for their work on this. Mr. Bugatti, thank you for co-chairing our discussion. And I think that'll do it for us for this presentation. Mrs. Dodone's map data.
Members of the board, thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to stand here because there are some things I want to point out on the presentation. And then you each have a copy of the presentation as well. So I was asked to share with you the things that NWA MAP does for us. And so I'm giving a little bit of background information. We do have a new board member who was not here when we first started using MAP 5 years ago. And then for anyone else that's listening. So NWA MAP, the teachers and administrators, principals, we just call it MAP, the students call it MAP, but NWA is the company that is responsible for the creation. It provides research-based assessments. They can be given starting in kindergarten and going all the way through high school level. They allow us to track students' growth over time. We typically give the test 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring. This year, we kind of manipulated some things around a little bit because of being in and out of school remotely, and testing remotely is not the most ideal way to test, but who knew we would have a pandemic? So, not me. The MAP assessments that we currently use, K-2 reading and math, those tests are automatically read to the students. We actually only use those tests in kindergarten and grade 1 because we find that the 2 through 5 is actually more appropriate for our second graders to help us assess where they are. Now, sometimes when we have a student in second grade who might be struggling or going through our response to intervention process, we might allow that student to take the K-2 test so that it's read to them. But otherwise, we do not have read-aloud on these tests. That is different from state tests that start in 3rd grade. Reading tests are not read to students. In fact, the state says that really only about 1% of students can qualify to have the reading test read to them, and that it doesn't count on the district or building scores. Helps assess the student, but it doesn't count on the scores. But all math, science, and social studies tests are read to students on the state test. They have the option of plugging in headphones or not plugging in their headphones. We also give 6+ reading and math, science in grades 5 and 8. Although we did not give the science test this year in the winter, just due to our changing circumstances. And then we give the test in algebra and geometry. They have added over the past couple of years algebra 2 and biology, but we have not started giving those tests. So the MAP assessment is called an adaptive or a SMART assessment. And the little picture that you see there, it basically shows how it works. Basically, when a student answers a question correctly, all students at the grade level are going to start with the same question. And then when they answer it correctly, it's going to move them up to a little bit more difficult, a little bit more difficult. If they miss that one, which you can see demonstrated here, it's going to move them down a level and test them again. And then it could take them back up in difficulty or down. And basically, it's searching for the student's zone of proximal development, which is where they can learn best, because that's the kind of information we're looking for by giving this diagnostic assessment. The MAP assessments are based on the state standards. They measure what students know and help define for the teachers and the principals, and help us as we're making choices curricularly, what the students are ready to learn. The overall score the students get is called a Writ score, and Writ stands for the Roush Unit of Measurement. In MAP, if you go to MAP training, they'll tell you the Writ score stands for Ready to Learn Today. This is what the students are ready to learn at this time. And we get an overall Writ score in reading and math, and again, in the science when we give it. And then we also get a Writ score for the students in the sub-strands of each main area, and you'll see that on the following pages. The test is nationally normed. It's actually given worldwide, but it's very, very highly used in the United States. And we are able to use MAP for gifted identification in reading and math at certain grade levels, but not all grade levels. And we are not allowed to use, well, no, let me rephrase. The state was a little bit wishy-washy on whether we were allowed to use it given remotely. And we determined based on our fall testing, we had some students whose parents shared with us that they might have helped more than they wanted to at home, or things like that. And we had some scores that were not consistent with previous scores. And so we decided as a district that we would not use it for a measure when administered remotely for the gifted identification. So MAP assessments provide information to guide things like Khan Academy. KhanAcademy.org is a pretty well-known website where you can go and learn how to do different types of math problems, starting all the way down in kindergarten, going all the way through college. You can, as just an individual, you could go on to KhanAcademy.org. You could type in the type of problem you're looking for. This is how I helped my daughter through her high school math classes because they taught math differently, surprisingly, than when I was in high school. And so we would go to KhanAcademy.org together. I would look up the type of problem. We would watch the video together, and it's literally someone demonstrating a problem and how to do the problem. The great thing about MAP is it links to Khan Academy. There's something called mappers, and then there's another way to go in as well. But many of our teachers use mappers, and what you do is you put in the overall Writ score and each of the sub scores, and then Khan Academy will actually prescribe practice and videos for the students to watch. A lot of the students that use this method really find it to be effective because they can stop the video, rewind, fast forward, and that sort of thing. MAP assessments also give us Lexile scores that can help us with recommending books at the appropriate level. And then they've recently started recommending, it's called yourreadingpath.com. You can go there, put in the Lexile score, and then get some recommendations based on that. And then they also have a College Explorer tool. I'm not going to show you that tonight because on the website, it always stalls. It takes a little while, but the really cool thing about the College Explorer tool is you can use it at a whole class level, which our middle school and high school teachers will do, or you can individualize it just for one student. And it shows colleges and universities all across the United States, and then students put in their Writ score and the grade level that they took the test, and then it will tell them all sorts of information about that college. And students who previously took MAP, how that correlated to their ACT, their acceptance into that university, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty cool tool if you can bear with the slowness of it working. It always stalls a little bit. Okay, so MAP has lots and lots of reports. I'm not going to cover all of them because we would be here until 10 just doing this. And I don't think anyone wants to listen about MAP quite that long. But the reports that give us the best information help share students' growth over time, as I mentioned before, their current achievement. There are goal-setting reports. Many of our teachers will either create their own goal-setting report, and some of our teachers use the ones right from MAP, but they do allow individual goal setting, and we do that starting in kindergarten all the way through the high school. We have teachers at the high school level sitting down with students during Tiger Time or during math and the appropriate math or language arts class to help them set goals. It also provides reports that are projected proficiency for state testing, and most of you have seen those in reports that Dr. Nichols has shared, so I didn't include that here. They can be disaggregated by district, school, classroom, individual student, or student groups. So if we want to look at student groups such as our English learners, students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, gifted in this area, that area, and so on, they've got it all. So the next slide actually has some sample classes. These are not our students. So I will be sharing the presentation with you so that you can click on hyperlinks. But I have screenshots on the next slide. But if you want to see what these reports look like for full classes, those will be in the presentation for you to click on. They are examples of the class reports. So the class reports start off on the front page. It gives an overall class breakdown, and that's broken into quintiles. So the 5 different sections are low, low average, average, high average, and high. And you can see I have a math and a language arts there. It looks exactly the same on the front of the report. And it tells you how many students in that particular class are in that quintile. And then the correlating percentage is the percent of students based on the whole numbers. The next page of the report goes into the substrands, as I was mentioning earlier. And I will caution you that with the samples that I used, the reading map assessment currently breaks down into 5 categories, and the example here is only showing 3. I had to contact our rep, and that's what she sent me, and she was out for meetings. So just so you know that. But for the math, it breaks it down into operations and algebraic thinking, number and operations, geometry, and measurement and data, which are all categories in our state testing. And then in the reading, there's vocabulary acquisition and use. We know from multiple studies that a student with a high vocabulary acquisition can actually perform better. And this has a lot to do with what you were just presenting with focus. Because a student knows those words, their reading is going to be more, they're going to have better comprehension and so on and so forth. And then this shows literature and informational text, and that's actually broken down. Each of those is broken into 2 categories in the most updated version of MAP. This is an example of a class reports breakdown by student. And so this is all on one report, each of these last pages. This tells you the Writ score for each student, and you can have it print out alphabetically or range it from high to low. Typically, we look at the high to low. They actually do low to high because low is at the top. The middle number here that I have highlighted in yellow, that's the actual Writ score. And then on the left and the right, it gives you ranges in terms of standard deviation. The next column over tells you the student's nationally normed percentile. Again, the area that I've highlighted in yellow is what we would use for gifted identification, if that's 95% or above in math or reading at the appropriate grade levels and not given remotely. And then the next column gives you the test duration. This sample shows that all the students spent exactly 60 minutes, which never happens, that all the students would spend exactly the same amount of time. These next 4 columns here, this particular report is a math 2 through 5 report. So column A correlates to operations and algebraic thinking. Column B correlates to numbers and operations. Column C to measurement and data, and column D to geometry. And then these are those quintiles that you saw on the very first page. It will tell you if the student in that subcategory is high, high average, average, or low. And again, because this is nationally normed, that's where they come up with those terms to know which category the students would fit in. This is a sample for the literature, same exact setup. Student's grade level has the Writ score, the percentile. This one gives you the Lexile range, so that's this column here. And then test duration. Amazingly, all the students spent the same amount of time in this class as well. And then this report, I just put a note on there that this is from 2017. So right now, this report shows 3 columns, but Currently, we actually have 5 columns showing the other categories of the informational text and the literary text. This report is one of my favorite reports. It's called the Class Breakdown by Writ Report. And what this does, and again, just a reminder, these are not our current students. That's why I got the sample from our rep. It breaks down the class first. Any student that has taken the math and the reading, they will both show up. So this top row here, those are all math students. This is a 6th grade class. This bottom row here, those are all reading students. So even though in our 6th grade, a student would not very likely have the same teacher for math and reading, although every once in a while we have a teacher certified for both, you can see exactly where the students fall overall in both of those categories. That's really helpful for our teachers. We share this also with our science and social studies teachers, and then we talk through this with them so that they can look at, if you have a student who's really good at solving math problems, but maybe not great at reading, this gives you an overall snapshot of that. And then that can help you understand how to tackle some things with that student. Very likely the teacher already knows that by the time we give math, but at the beginning of the year, they might not have discovered that yet. This report is then broken down even further, and that's what the next page is. So this particular example is from a 7th grade language arts class, and it takes each student, it gives the student's name in the substrands, and then the number you see in parentheses is actually their overall Writ score. It's not their Writ score in that area. So that's why you might see that it doesn't match. So for example, this one here I think says 189, but it's in the 191 to 200 category. It's not because Matt made a mistake. It's because their overall Writ score is actually below the 191 to 200 category. So teachers know how to read these reports. Administrators know how to read these reports. We spent time this week in our DLT working with the administrators, and then in a meeting the next day, where basically we looked at these students that I have put the green box around. Those are students that we would say are ready to learn in those areas, and I'll show you how we see that in the next page. We would say that that's like tier 1. So if a teacher taught to those groups of students in those areas, they can see exactly which students that they would meet the needs for. And then the students where I have the red swoop over here, those are students who are not quite there, but they're not necessarily that far off. And teachers might need to use intervention. And then all the way down here, we have 1 or 2 students that might need even more intense intervention or one-on-one. On the other side, perhaps those students are ready to go a little bit deeper, answer different questions, maybe some enrichment, things like that. When the teachers and principals access this report, these are blue because they're actually typically in the report, they're hyperlinked. And then they can click on any individual student. That's one way to just look at a student. And that will take them to a screen that looks like this. This screen shows the standards. And if a student is in the 211 to 220 Writ range where it says develop, that's the middle one here, that means they're ready to learn these skills that are associated with this standard. So this is an example from a 9th grade class. These are 9th and 10th grade standards for reading literature. Cite strong and thorough textual evidence to support analysis of what the text says explicitly, as well as inferences drawn from the text. I put that particular example up there because we happen to know that that's a weakness district-wide. This is something we've been studying our trends with. Students may be able to make inferences, but they have a hard time pulling details from the text. Or sometimes they can find some of the details, but they don't make the right inference based on that. And our state testing has shown us that this particular area has been a weakness for us. If you look across at the words, you'll see that some of the same things show up perhaps in each column. students that would fall in the 201 to 210 Writ range are ready to learn these two skills, but they're not quite ready to go any farther. And then students between 211 and 220 and 221 and 230 have almost all of the same things, and there might be maybe just one thing different. Sometimes they're the exact same skills. And then this is another example. This is from 7th grade. You'll see that there's a blank in this column here, 181 to 190. That means that the 7th grade standard, and this is RL 7.1, it's actually almost the exact same standard for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and 9th grade, that RL, whichever grade level, 0.1. So this is not a 7th grade standard here. So there are not skills associated there. Then in the middle, they're ready to develop these, which are kind of the basis. And then as we're trying to push students a little further, then some more skills are added. So I'm going to go back a couple of slides. As a teacher is looking at his or her class, they're not ignoring the students in the blue swoop or the red swoop. They go to the screen that I was just showing you and look to see what is the same and what is different about the skills required. And then that's how they can determine what to teach to whole class, what to teach to small group, or what to teach to just one-on-one. On this screen, I just showed you, these are the different subcategories. So as I mentioned, we have literary text, language, craft, and structure, informational text, key ideas and details, informational text, language, craft, and structure, vocabulary acquisition and use. So these that I've circled in blue are just little drop downs, and a teacher can open or close drop downs depending on what they're currently trying to teach, so they don't have to be quite so overwhelmed. And that was one of the things our administrators were working on this week. And this is a sample from math. And again, the one thing I like about math is that the reports look the same, whether it's reading or math, which is not true when you look at the state standards, because they're written in a completely different way. Reading is different from math, is different from science, which is different from social studies. And that can be a little bit overwhelming. So what we did with our DLT and our administrators this week is they started taking some of the big burden off and diving in a little bit using these. And again, these links are live when I share the presentation with you. And these are the reading. It's the Ohio Reading Restart Plan, the Ohio Writing Restart Plan, and the Math Restart Plan. And then from that one, you have to actually click into algebra and geometry. And so what we did this week with the principals is we asked them to look, whoops, go back, here at what Writ ranges were the students in, the bulk of students. And then they looked here at the actual standards that showed up there. And then we asked them to go into this restart plans. And the restart plans actually show what Ohio has identified as the priority standards. So as we are trying to finish out the fourth quarter, you've probably heard that the governor has asked that we come up with a plan to address student needs for the fourth quarter, for the summer, for next year, for the following year. We wanted to see what are the standards that teachers can focus on and which are the standards that they can maybe take a pause on for right now. And so that's the work that the administrators started doing this week. So they went through, this is an example, these are the 6th through 8th grade, that RL 6.1 through 8.1 that I just showed you on the other example. And the principals went through each of these standards that the state said were priority standards. And then they looked at the teachers' data and said, okay, which of these standards in these classes do the students actually need to focus on? Some of them they've already mastered. Yep. So this is just a quote from Focus. It's way back in the beginning of the book. But basically, MAP connects to the other work that we're doing. It obviously connects to teaching. This is helping drive our instruction because it's helping us understand our students. it's part of our district goal, which our overarching goal is directly related to MAP. And then this particular quote from Focus is talking about the need to focus on just the most important standards. And, Schmoker himself actually says, we shouldn't be worried about all the standards in Common Core. It's too much. We know we can never go deep. We're always on the surface level. So going back to the priority standards from the state, looking at the data we have from MAP, and then thinking in terms of focus, we're doing exactly what he recommends, even though we're not actually adopting the whole book at this time, exactly what we'll do. We haven't determined. But basically he's saying teachers, administrators should work in true professional learning communities where curriculum units and lessons are continuously developed and refined on the basis of assessment results. So that's how we're using MAP. Now, in previous years, we have had a consultant named Leah Travis. You've approved contracts for her before, so you've seen her name. She works for the Cuyahoga ESC, and she is a former principal who was excellent at using MAP in her own building. And she comes and talks and meets in small groups with our teachers to help them dive into MAP at the elementary level. Sometimes she works with the middle school, and then I usually work with some of the middle school, and then I work with the high school teachers to help them there. One thing I didn't show you is how MAP actually correlates in terms of, for our students with disabilities, because of the way the standards are, you can actually see a great way for our intervention specialists to focus our IEP goals, which are all based on standards. This is how they get that. So this is called the student profile report. I look at student profile, I look at student profile reports when I am starting to make decisions about acceleration, because I look to see where students are. MAP has recommendations. So for example, a student who has a 235 overall Writ on the math reading, on the math 6+, MAP says that student is ready for pre-algebra. Well, our personal data has shown that we want students to be a little bit higher than that, and that's also not the only data that we look at. We also look at grades. We also look at other classroom assessments. We also look at state scores, because if you're accelerating a student, the state says you have to have multiple data points. So on the MAP student profile report, this is often where I go to see a little bit more about the student. So this gives the overall Writ score, the Writ score in the subcategories. You'll see here it says relative strength. What they mean by that term is it is relative to that student. In other words, 214 is higher than the other ones. Sometimes it will say it won't have that at all. Over here, it tells you the student's growth percentage, a mean growth percentage, and then there's also an achievement growth percentage. And on the next, maybe 2 slides forward, you'll actually see they have a quadrant chart, which is another report. On that same student profile report, you can see a student's growth over time. So this tells you when they were tested, and then their Writ score. And when teachers are actually in the live MAP, when you click on the little open dots, that gives you even more information, such as how long did the student spend on the test? What percentage of rapid guessing did the student have, and things like that. Our teachers use this report to sit down one-on-one with students, to set goals, and to say, look where you are, let's talk about where you want to go. MAP says you can go here. Do you think you can meet or beat that? Because that's always our goal, to meet or beat the previous score. And sometimes we have those conversations where you click in the little dot and I say, this says, Mr. Ninth grader, that you spent 20 minutes on this test. And look, your score went down. That's interesting. I wonder what would have happened if you had spent 45 to 60 minutes, which is what a typical ninth grader should spend taking the test. And the students will say, they're very honest when you're talking with them one-on-one. Oh yeah, I was just clicking, I was just trying to get through. Well, yeah, I can tell that. MAP actually has a feature now where it will stop the students testing if they're rapid guessing too much, and the teacher has to intervene. So that's a nice feature they added last year. Also on that student profile report is that quadrant chart I was just talking about. So this student is in the low area of growth and the high area of achievement. So that's just from the last test to this test. We would love for this little diamond to be up here, which is high growth and high achievement. So again, those are conversations that the teachers can have. And then it also gives a projection for the state test. So this student is projected to be advanced on the state test. And this is, as I said, this was a 7th grade language arts, I believe. So that would be on the 7th grade state test for language arts. The student is projected to be advanced. We have done studies within the district to see how well does MAP correlate to our state test. And it's pretty well correlated. The one big difference is the state test includes a writing component that is not included here. And then for an individual student, I can go in and look at their sub-scores. And this is one of our real students, which is why I blacked out names. And you can see what standards and what skills they are ready to learn today. Or you can actually click as a teacher and see where do they need remediation or where do they need enrichment. And then this is just an example of the same thing from a reading test. That is what I have prepared for you this evening. Do you have any questions?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jones. We
Thank you.
appreciate the time you spent preparing this for us.
Thanks, Julie.
We're ready for item E, Treasurer CFO's business consent agenda.
I'd like to recommend that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the treasurer's consent agenda.
So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes. Can you pull up, what's first, the amounts and rates? The amounts and rates, that is an annual approval that is done and is sent to the Budget Commission. What it is approving is we are sent this certification of tax levy from, if you scroll down, 3rd page, I think, yeah, there. Each year, and it's kind of their estimate for the next school year on the effective, it shows the effective mills, what it will bring in. At the top, in the top right corner there, it shows the valuation. So as you'll see, the 878 million is an increase. Last year it was around 770 million. So that is due to the reappraisal. Unfortunately, like I mentioned last meeting, that doesn't mean any extra dollars for us. And if you compared these two documents, you would see that because it shows exactly what it'll bring in for each levy. You can see that there's not much of a change at all between the two. So that's that. And then permanent appropriations, there were just a couple changes to grants, just with adjustments through middle of the year here. And the big one, of course, is we needed to add our ESSER2 funds on here in order to have them appropriated to spend. So you'll see that there. And like I said, a couple of the grant accounts, just very minor. Some of them were only like $20, but they did change due to figures in the enrollment. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Stoikoy on the appropriations? Please call the roll.
Dr. Hall?
Aye.
Ms. Moffett?
Aye.
Ms. Schofield?
Aye.
Ms. White?
Aye.
Mr. Gomez?
Aye.
Item F, Treasurer CFO's business, Mrs. Stoikoy.
Two things. One, I just wanted to mention again, I know it was out on Facebook and our webpage, but our audit is complete. We did receive the Auditor of State Award with Distinction, which is the highest that you can get. And as much as I'd love to say it was just those 7 districts, it wasn't just those 7 districts, but I do have to be honest there. But so that is all done, and be back at it again next year. Second is kind of, it's professional but personal. I think I mentioned before that OASBO had started their DEI committee that I had joined, and at our last meeting, I was named the chair of that. So
Nice.
we'll see how that goes. It's a new committee, so we're not really sure, a whole lot yet about what we're doing, but it is part of their strategic plan.
This is their equity work, right?
Yes,
Mhm.
and so I'm excited to be a part of that.
Good. Thank you. Congratulations. Item G, Superintendent CEO's business consent agenda.
Thank you, President Schofield, members of the board. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve all items listed in the superintendent's business consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
In the consent agenda, I do want to call attention to a particular contract that we have that is for bipolar ionization that will help mitigate any kind of airborne viruses that we have. And so not only does it mitigate airborne viruses at a high rate, it also mitigates surface, those that land on the surface. So it will continue to add a layer of mitigation against COVID-19 and other viruses. It'll help with some of the ventilation aspects that we have been concerned about. And that I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention as we consider a return to school.
On that, do we know when they might be able to install those?
Joe?
There's a 2 to 6 week part wait timeframe. So if approved tonight, I will get the contractor tomorrow. He'll order the parts. It would be a rush to say we might be doing some. I hate to say that, but we might be doing some during the course of spring break. Certainly, if we get the parts in, they would be willing and they're going to install at that point in time. If not, it probably would be done until summertime. But we're shooting for at least the elementaries. Hopefully, it's more like 2 weeks and not 6 weeks. These parts are a little easier to get than some of the other ones that we are looking at for the middle and high school.
Yeah, and that's an important note that I was going to share. Thank you, Joe, for sharing middle and high school, because we are going down the road of obtaining quotes for middle and high school buildings as well.
Good. Great. Great news. Thank you for your work on that. Thank you. Any questions on any of these items?
I have no questions, but I am sure impressed with some of the boilers at the elementary level. They have exceeded their time immensely. I mean, I think if the public takes a look, wasn't one of them 1946?
Yeah.
I mean, people are always saying, oh, things should last longer. Well, that one was hard to beat. So I want to make the public aware that we are really doing a good job with some of the equipment that we're using that really look past their primes.
The youngest one is 1960.
Exactly. Well, thank you for attending.
Thank
to
you.
those.
Roll call, please, Mrs. Stoickley.
Ms. Moffitt,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall.
Hi.
Oops. May we go back and just commend Kate Bloom for the work that she's done and let her know that we shall miss her terribly.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Item H.
Return to school is the first item under section H. And as you know, I have issued a statement that we would be returning to school 5 days a week, K through 12, April 6th, when we return from spring break. I've identified the rationale that's associated therewith, and the 95% efficacy rate of the Pfizer vaccine after being fully vaccinated. First round, we had 80%-ish of our certified staff received the first round. And during the second round, the remainder of the staff will have the opportunity to receive their first round vaccine. And so that's, as I'm talking about layers of mitigation that are identified in the CDC documents and in conversations with Summit County Public Health, we are moving forward with the plan to return April 6th, unless you so direct me to do differently. Then I'll scramble and reshuffle. But I know that CFEA has put out a Google form for teachers who might have some concerns to share those concerns. I will share with you that probably about a third of any of the comments have been no concerns, bring them back. Those that do have concerns are centered upon social distancing, eating in the classrooms, air ventilation that we talked about tonight that I brought up. So I'll be meeting with representatives from CFEA early next week to walk through some of those things, and we've already begun discussions internally on how we might be able to address some of those issues. We are also and talking about some degree of normalcy. I met with Mr. Smith from the high school and Ms. Bogdan from the high school, and we had a great discussion with regard to graduation and prom. That continues to be a discussion that's in a weekly conversation with superintendents and Tanya Burford and Donna Skoda. And so we're looking at different venues, really 3 different options with regard to prom or with regard to graduation. There will be one. So in one way or another, we will have some level of in-person graduation this year. And we'll keep you informed as to what that's going to look like. We talked about a number of options with regard to prom. And we'll continue to have those conversations. The students, Ms. Bogdan is engaging the students and the decision-making on those 2 pieces as well. So I'm happy to be returning to some level of normalcy as we move forward. So are there any questions with regard to return to school?
When can parents expect to receive more information? Is that all call? Because that all call was very confusing, unfortunately, because it didn't address our Black Tiger Remote Learning Academy, and even still up till today, I've seen parents confused by that, because there are parents that think that their kid's going to be forced to be brought back in.
And we know that is not true. So
and we know that that's not true, but unfortunately, because the all call didn't address that option, those parents are still concerned about that. So we need to work on that. And I appreciate what you're doing with the staff engagement. I do, but will parents be given a similar opportunity to express questions and concerns so that we can be providing information with them?
we can arrange for that.
Okay. And then what are our plans to engage children in the classroom? I know that when we've had 2 learning modalities, things are very different and kids are tied to these all day. But now that we're bringing them back to the classroom, we don't have to be tied to this anymore. So how are we going to engage?
Help me understand what you're asking me.
Right now, if you walk around our classrooms, our
Right.
kids are tied to these.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not engaged learning. And when we talk about curriculum, we talked about how this is a tool, but it's not the be all end all.
Right.
So how are we helping prepare students and staff to make a shift from having to be tied to these because we're doing both to being able to engage?
Well, I would imagine that we're going to return to some level of normalcy in terms of our delivery of instruction as well. And I know that there are conversations that are taking place K-5 and 6-12 levels in terms of exactly that, delivery of education.
I think parents don't have enough information right now, and as excited as a lot of parents are, excited as I am, that our kids are going back. I think there's just a lot of confusion out there.
What are the points of confusion, Mr. Gomez?
Everything.
Okay.
People are confused about everything. When you ask them, they just have no idea what's going on. And they feel like they're not being given the same opportunity to be heard. And I think most of our parents would be happy that you're asking staff, but they're going to say, well, why aren't we asking us?
Okay.
Why aren't our questions and concerns being thought of in the same respect? So
Thank you.
I think we can do more there.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Other return to school comments, board members? Item 2 then, Dr. Nichols, please.
Sure. Just a couple of brief comments. First of all, we need to have a policy committee meeting. And so are you available, Patty, Ms. White, with Wednesday at 5 o'clock? Next Wednesday, 5 o'clock?
I can make that.
5:05.
5:05.
Yeah. So I can
5:05.
make it up the street.
Okay, just tell me 5, that's fine.
I might even make it 5:15, give you a little
No,
extra.
5:05 is fine. We don't
All
gotta
right.
sit and stare at each other for 10
And we'll
minutes.
meet it in the board.
Yes.
Okay.
Tomorrow I have full day scheduled with TDA. We are going to be meeting at 9:30 in the high school for our modern communications room there that's being renovated for that new program. And then at 11 o'clock, we will be having a discussion with regard to our community engagement schedule. And then at 1:30, we're going to be visiting playgrounds, Silver Lake, Price, and Dewitt playgrounds. So that's a full day scheduled with them. In terms of our Come On Home campaign, not only are we marketing, but Chris Shaw and John Silko have identified really 3 major groups of folks that have left the district. And so not only will you be noticing billboards in the area, but also John's going to be making personal phone calls to those families. And then lastly, I attended the high school parent-teacher organization event Saturday, and that was well done, well set up. Well distanced. I know the vendors were excited to be there, and we purchased I was making a roast on Sunday, and one of the places had specific kinds of spices and so on and so forth. And so I purchased one for a roast, and it was awesome. So,
Thank you, Dr. Nichols.
uh-huh.
Item I, board business. Number 1, policy approval and adoption. It's recommended the Board of Education approve and adopt the following policies, which were reviewed at the February 17th, 2021 Board of Education meeting.
So moved. Oh, I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on any of these policies?
Phew,
Roll
it's a
call.
lot of reading. Good
Ms.
luck.
Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett.
Aye.
Item 2, National School Board Association membership. It's recommended the Cuyahoga Falls Board of Education join the National School Board Association for the remainder of the 2020-2021 fiscal year at the rate of $3,330.
So moved. I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion on this item.
I do have a question. With the financial component of it, what do we project it to be long-term?
So that's the yearly rate. It'll be prorated this year for the remaining months that you'd be members, and then that is the yearly rate, the
Okay.
annual rate.
Additional questions on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. White,
Aye.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield.
Aye. Item 3, student workers. We've had this item on our agenda a few times now, specifically talking about the possibility of hiring them to serve as part of our substitute staff. Any additional information on?
So the substitute cleaner rate is $11 an hour. And in our cabinet discussion today, we were considering at what age we would hire these students. And as a cabinet, we would recommend that it would be an 18-year-old student, 18-year-old senior. Given the independent nature of some of these positions. So that's would be amongst the recommendations that we would make, and we would hire them as we would a substitute cleaner
Fabulous.
at $11 an hour, if that is the pleasure of the board.
We move forward with this then?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Awesome. Thank you for your work.
Perfect,
All of you.
perfect. I love it.
You
Thank you.
that Worked on that.
We'll just advertise them in the high school.
Okay.
Put something on them, so I'm gonna hold it this block and advertise that, and then they can apply just like any other person would on it.
Perfect. Great. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Item 4, future agenda. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking at it, I'm making sure that we
Okay.
the application, the interviews appropriate.
Great. Thank you. Item 4, future agenda item.
Yes, can we on our March, that'll be the St.
17th.
Patrick's Day, right? Yeah,
17th.
okay, March 17th agenda, have someone from the Student Success and Wellness Committee, whether it's Mr. Lazar, Ms. Merkel, whomever, update us on the status of that work as we are shifting back, and specifically on social workers. Mr. Lazar told me a decision would be made in March on that.
Other items?
And they don't even have to do a PowerPoint. If they just want to come in and just give us an update, that's fine. I'm not trying to make, it doesn't need to be a whole shebang.
We've done some work there, and we had discussion today with regard to social workers.
Are we going to go over the literacy?
Yes.
Okay, that's on the
Yes, at the
schedule.
bottom of your notes, you have a sequence of presentations
Okay.
that have mapped out. I think I have it through June 2nd.
Okay. Thank you.
Item 5, committee reports. Alliance for School and Community Growth. Mrs. Moffett.
None, we are meeting next Tuesday.
Thank you. Athletics and Activity Council, Dr. Hall.
Yeah. Sorry, we are meeting on March 15th.
Thank you. Board Policy, Ms. White, Mr. Gomez.
We're meeting next Wednesday.
Business Advisory Council, Mrs. Moffett and Ms. White.
I don't think there's anything, but I think we meet again in May. Is that right?
Financial Advisory Committee, Dr. Hall.
Yeah, so we met on 18th, and Christy took us through the CAFR. Can we call it a CAFR?
CAFR, yeah.
CAFR. Just talking about how it's a written summary of the accomplishments, including like history and background. It was described as good and clean. There are some procedural things to look at and fix. They looked at the special ed grant more in depth because it was more than $750,000. And then the info in the intro of that document, she was saying, is very much like what's in the preliminary official statement related to the sale of the bonds. There are a lot of highlights from the report as far as, financially and otherwise. It was submitted to GFAO and ASBO for excellence in financial reporting. Sitting through that, it's clear that she keeps us very well informed in these meetings. So I didn't get much more in that than she's given us here because she does a great job. So. Also, there was discussion of Neonet for the financial software and support, technology, EMIS, Dazzle, data security, backup, progress book, Apple Track, the effects of COVID on finances. We talked about the levies, the assessed value versus debt, demographics and population, 10 years of assets, building info, operating expenses, teacher statistics, and then the management letter as far as what to fix. We are the fiduciary agent for non-publics, and the non-publics use ESC or PSI for psychologists and other things they contract out. They're required to get the quote, 3 quotes, and they didn't get the quotes because they wanted to keep the same provider. So OD wants those schools to show that they went through the proper process because they have to go through that process. Right?
That's our federal procurement process. Well, everyone's, but they are also allocated some of our, federal funds where they're fiduciary agent for that as well. And so they have to go through the same procedures and follow our policies as far as federal procurement goes. So that's been remedied for this year. They hadn't done it in the past just because they've kept the same people for consistency with their students, which is fine. But they need to demonstrate that they at least, even if they go out and that quote is higher than another one, they don't have to take the lowest one because they can use the fact that they want to keep that consistency. They don't want to keep pulling in different workers, support services to be with the students. So they're already on that for this year, so that should be taken care of.
Another thing was that the district outsourced this inventory by sending the data to a contractor, and still was demolished, but the contractor, that is the valuation engineer, did not take SIL out of the equation, so that was another issue. And a couple comments on payroll. That Christy should sign off on the full amount. Do you wanna
Yes,
talk
there's a form for each payroll, and it's part of our software. And when it's printed out, it says general fund. So that's the total they were putting, the general fund portion of the payroll, and I sign off on it every week. The auditors had said we want the entire payroll amount on there when you sign off, even though the wording on it says general. So we've been doing that and taking care of that as well. So.
Cool. And then the healthcare consortium, the funds were kept separate and moved to the general fund, and they said to remove the separate fund, which we did.
Yeah, we have. They were kind of doing a double posting of charging it to the general fund, moving it to the 026, and then making payments out of there. And it was really double, was what was happening. So now it's just all out of the general fund. Everything just is there because there's no need for it to be separated like that.
Now we went through an overview of the building and talked about the second round COVID ESSER funds. We're going to get 2.2 million and some other things. Just hoping to get up to the 25% cash balance. Discuss the 13.7% increase in property valuation, but there's no extra money for schools, as we know. Talked about the COVID vaccines, which you just spoke about. We had 1,600 vaccines. Our second round coming up soon. Talked about the new CDC guidelines. When the second vaccine goes into effect, 2 weeks. And targeting the date to get kids back in school. Obviously, we know about that now. And then food service, we discussed the $200,000 that was transferred to food service for COVID, that the food is reimbursable, and that we've reimbursed $100,000 of that so far. Right?
Yeah, for last month, yeah.
And then we're meeting on May 13th at 9 a.m.
Thank you, Dr. Hall, for your thorough report. Appreciate that. Foundation Alumni Association, Mr. Gomez.
We will be meeting this coming Tuesday, and our main attraction is a presentation on finances by Ms. Stoichel.
Legislative Liaison, Mr. Gomez.
Just a few things. President Biden's education secretary was confirmed and sworn in, so Secretary Cardona is getting to work. We expect to see some things in terms of education rolling out, some things that President Biden said he wanted to happen in education, hopefully happening. There's also things that they want to roll back from the previous administration. A lot of that relates to policies was just approved, which we've covered previously. They want to change them, and then you'll get to read 19 more Mrs. Month. And if you're lucky, it'll be before December 31st.
Yeah.
And you probably also saw that the Department of Education announced there'll be no waivers on federal testing for the year, but you can still apply, and they encourage states to apply for the waiver on the penalty side of that. So they want the federal testing. Their belief is that it will help us identify gaps in student learning, and that's important, but they don't want it to hurt states and local districts in terms of kids not learning, because they understand that kids perhaps have not learned as much as they normally would due to COVID. They just really want to get a grasp on that. So that kind of, the House bill that I discussed at our last meeting is kind of a moot point now because of that. And then Ohio Department of Education came out with guidance on these learning gap plans that Mrs. Dudones alluded to earlier. And they came out with a clarification that it's not a requirement, but even still, they expect it to become a requirement through legislation before the end of the school year, so that they are encouraging districts, even though it's just a suggestion right now, to plan as if it will become a requirement because we expect to see a House bill coming out on that.
That's consistent with the information we've received in superintendent's organizations in the sense that April 1st will be pushed back is our anticipation, pending legislation. And it might even be part of the budget bill, which then means June, July kind of a thing. So that's kind of some of the inside scoop that we're hearing. So nonetheless, we're still pursuing, what are we going to do with our kids? So.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. Student Achievement Liaison, the district leadership team meeting was held this past Monday. Couple of the big items at that meeting, the ICS for Equity third quarter coaching meetings with the BLTs at each school, and Dr. Fertura, I believe, began today with the high school in Silver Lake. Tomorrow, Roberts and Preston, and then next week, Richardson, Price, Lincoln, Dewitt, and Bullock. So every BLT from each building will have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Fertura and talk about their building equity plans and have their coaching for the third quarter. Fourth quarter coaching meetings are already scheduled for each building, and those will take place in mid-May. And just a reminder to board members, Thursday, August 5th and Friday, August 13th are the 2 days for part 2 of ICS for Equity training. Also, as Mrs. Dudones mentioned in her presentation, under student achievement, buildings were asked to take a look at priority standards that need to be taught or retaught during this fourth grading period. And so they analyze map data. They'll share that with BLTs, which are building leadership teams, and TBTs, which are teacher-based teams, and then work to address those standards here in this last grading period. Reminder that March 9th is the Kiva meeting from 8 to 9. And I believe Dr. Nichols will be getting us an invitation to that meeting on Zoom and an agenda soon.
Yes, I sent it out to the Alliance folks today, and it will be following with you guys.
Thank you. The next district leadership team meeting is May 3rd. The next student wellness and success meeting is March 8th. And as Mr. Gomez mentioned, at this point in time, it appears that the spring state testing will still be required. And that's it for student achievement. Comments? We'll begin with Dr. Hall this evening.
I wanted to thank Mr. Rigotti for the tour of Schnee. It's good to get in there and see those rooms. I'm looking forward to seeing that all happen. Congratulations to Christy again for the award. Awesome for the district. And I wanted to say this earlier and I forgot, but I just want to say thanks to Mr. Hutch for figuring out the tech backup and disaster stuff too. It's a needed area of coverage. So nice work.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. On to Mrs. Moffett.
I would like to thank the people who were involved with our literacy study, and I am very much looking forward to the literacy specialists that will be entering into our elementary buildings. I hate to bring it up, but as a former elementary teacher, middle school, sometimes you're looking for guidance. And even if you're experienced, you're still looking for people who have quick tips, sources, anything that you can utilize in the classroom to make things go a little better. So I'd like to thank those folks. We're saying goodbye to Mrs. Coons this week, and we're sorry to see her go. The Tiger Band is having a fundraiser at Five Guys Burgers and Fries on March 10th, which is next Wednesday, from 11 to 8. And the more people who go and mention the band, the higher the proceeds will be. The percentages are sort of on a scale. So if we can get more people there, we'll get a better percentage of their profits, I guess. So please encourage families to go, starting at lunchtime, 11 to 8.
Thank you, Mrs. Moffett. I'm up next. I wanted to reiterate a thank you to Mr. Bugatti for the tour of Schnee. Again, congratulate Mrs. Stoikoi for Auditor of State with distinction. Wish Karen Kuntz the best of luck as she finishes off this week. I believe Friday's her last day with us.
That's correct.
So we wish her the best as she resettles in her new state. And absolutely looking forward to the literacy study presentation at our next meeting. Mrs. White?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that Mrs. Kuntz was in the newspaper for making the grade. And then we had two of our students, and Brandon Stimmel, Silver Lake. And I'm trying to think, Lucy Burrington Richardson Elementary School. So wonderful job for those. I also worked at the school Tiger Food Bank or whatever. I don't know exactly, Tiger Bags. And I just want to take a minute to thank the volunteers, the staff, the PTOs. It's a lot harder than you think. We had to take paper bags, brown bags, open those up and stuff them into a other bag, 2 in 1, and then another one. And we are serving, I think it's 54 families. And it's just awesome. And I did enjoy the time that I spent there learning and all of that. I've done that twice now this year, and I really appreciate the time and and how important that is when you really see that. And finally, I know you guys are going to want me. Okay, I do have 2 articles. I'm not going to read all of them because, I won't. But at any rate, one was in Education Week, and it states we have a national reading crisis. And I just wanted to share the essential insights that are supported by reading research that educators should know, but the article says they don't always know. Number 1, grouping students by reading level is poorly supported. So, we don't want to really do that. Many teachers overspend instructional time on skills and strategies, and emphasizing that offers diminishing returns for student learning. Students' background knowledge is essential to reading comprehension, and students build content knowledge in history and science in order to empower reading success, which goes with Schmoker's book, Focus, that we are reading. They do suggest daily systematic phonics instruction in the early grades, K1, pretty much, and then proven strategies for getting all kids, including English language learners, students with IEPs, and struggling readers, working with grade level text must be employed to ensure equitable literacy work, and that goes along with our equity team. The other article I had was by Natalie Wexler, which you heard her earlier speaking. Don't stop teaching comprehension, just embed it in content. And again, just real quickly, she quotes Dr. Timothy Shanahan, that data, like finding the main idea, are they really skills? And, we don't know, because if you can ride a bike, you can always ride a bike. It doesn't matter what kind. But when students are reading different things, it always doesn't apply. It's not always not applied, but always transferred. So it's just an interesting article that is stating that just incorporating skills and strategy instruction into substantive subjects like history, science, literature, and the arts. And we don't want to forget music and art, of course. Suggestions of reading and writing and the content being taught. So embed those things in content of the other academic subjects. So just 2 good articles that I wanted to bring your attention to.
Thank you, Ms. White.
Mhm.
Bring us home, Mr. Gomez.
Hey, first and most importantly,
read
you
them
can
all.
vote for our band for best band. We're one of 7 bands nominated. Mr. Wazoko shared it on the district Facebook page as well today. We have a history of always winning these competitions, and I think we want to keep our record. I too had an opportunity to stop at the vendor fair this weekend. It was very well done. Everyone was very complimentary of how it was set up. The vendors felt that we did it in a thoughtful way, and it was very safe. So good job to the high school PTSO. I also had an opportunity last week to attend our PTO council meeting for the district. Dr. Nichols was there as well. They've got some good fundraising ideas coming up, and once those get fully announced, I'll make sure to share those with everyone. The Lego project that we are working on for our elementary schools, we've got exciting news to announce. 3 of the 6 buildings have enough Legos for every kid. So we're halfway to the goal. Preston, Price, and Richardson all have their Legos now. So through a variety of different ways, but we are still collecting Legos. We're halfway there, but we're not done. If you know of people with a little bit older kids that might not be using them anymore, we can use those and we'll put them to good use. And yes, we do sanitize them. Last night we had literacy night. So thank you to our title teachers. They did a really phenomenal job of putting together an online literacy night for all of our students. And what I particularly liked about it was that there was one theme for everyone in the district. Not that I don't enjoy and want to go back to having events in the schools, but it was really nice to see everybody in all of our buildings united under one theme. All the K2 kids had certain activities, and then the 3-5 kids had different activities, and it was movie themed. And from parents that I've heard, the feedback was phenomenal. They thought it was just really one of the best pieces of the year so far. So thank you to our title teachers for making sure that that happened. And then lastly, on the Come On Home campaign, I just hope that we can get that going, because it keeps getting delayed, and I think we're missing out on people, because January and February are when a lot of the private schools promote enrolling. And a lot of people already signed commitments. And I know of, I'm not going to name families, so that's not appropriate, but I know of families that have been invested in this district for a really long time. And I'm seeing them sending their kids to private schools.
That's one of our target groups.
So it's not just bringing them home, but we really need to engage in convincing people that we're a district worth staying for. And I think that's really the primary work that maybe we're missing. And it can't be something that keeps getting delayed. It's something that is already too late, and we're losing even more families. And it really hurts my heart to see some of these families that have done so much for our district leaving. I'll stop there because I'll get more emotional, but there's a lot of work to be done.
As I mentioned, Mr. Wasoko is making personal phone calls to those families.
Other comments, Mr. Gomez? Item J, executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1. It is hereby moved by that the board move adjourn, please excuse me, to an executive session for the purpose of considering the employment and compensation of employees or officials of the school district. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
Is that the right one?
We switched those, remember?
Mhm.
Did you read the right one?
You said company.
Oh.
I think you used plural.
I did get switched on this one. That's
Probably
what
not
she's
on the
going
one she
off.
has.
May not be on the one that you have. Anyways. The one that's not plural. is,
Okay.
Is the one we're adjourning to for
Let me
right now.
re-motion this.
Okay.
Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, section 121.22G1, it is hereby moved that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the employment of an employee or official of the school district.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Gomez,
Aye.
Dr. Hall,
Aye.
Ms. Moffett,
Aye.
Ms. Schofield,
Aye.
Ms. White.
Aye.
I would have been happy to go first, but
What is that?
it wasn't right.